this as a concept in my mind. And assuredly that than which nothing greater can be conceived cannot exist in the understanding alone. For suppose it exists in the understanding alone, then it can be conceived to exist in reality, which is greater. A real unicorn would be much greater than an imaginary one. Right? Hence, there is doubt that there exists a being than which nothing greater can be conceived, and it exists both in the understanding and in reality. So, hence the pizza question. Is there a largest pizza in Anchorage? I hear. Oh, there are already pizzas in Anchorage at the moment. I have 2 in my freezer. They're DiGiorno. But they're not really that big. They get bigger, right? Sicily's, I don't know, Papa John's, whoever, right? You've seen big pizza. Whatever pizza is the largest pizza in Anchorage, I'm assuming there has to be one because there are pizzas. If you've got a whole bunch of pizzas, one of them has to be the biggest, even if it might be just a gram, which is the weight of a paperclip. But if you think about it, there has to be a largest one. There's also a smallest one. Yes?
Yeah, but the pizza doesn't last very long because it gets eaten.
I agree 100%, especially if it's a good one. I've seen, tables full, blocks long in Italy where they have annual competitions. Yes.
Monster Pizza in Anchorage, Alaska claims to have the largest pizza in the world. I've never gone, but they claim to have the largest.
I can see it, otherwise they're quite not the monster pizza. They have to have.
The name would say a lot.
Yes, yes. They also, by the way, the sodas that are monster sodas, and the one lady's always sitting at tables showing you that if you turn it upside down, it reads 666.
Oh my God, yeah.
Well, in any case, so there is a largest pizza in Anchorage. In fact, is there a largest pizza in the world?
Yes.
Yes. I guess this is just a mathematical question. Since there are pizzas, there has to be a largest pizza in the world, etc. Largest pizza in the universe. Still the same answer, right? Yes, has to be. Now, here's the interesting thing about the definition of God, as Anselm has given it to us. God is that than which nothing greater can be conceived. So it's in the negative, as they would say in Latin, it's the via negativa. They're taking the negative way to get to prove that God exists, right? There's the via positiva too, but this is the cosmological arguments will be that. But this one is using the via negativa, which says, well, we cannot actually conceive of God by definition because we're finite beings, and thinking in terms of God in the center of all time, etc. We can say, all right, so time exists throughout all time and space, etc. But wait a minute, I can't really escape my limit and think of time as I experience it. Right? I can't do that. Neither can I imagine God as that than which nothing greater can be conceived. But I can conceive of all kinds of things. Unicorns don't exist. Islands, really big islands, right? The greatest island that's conceivable is Greenland, at least on the Earth, right? Although that gets into an interest. Why is Australia not an island? In fact, why is any continent not actually an island, since they're all surrounded by water? How do you determine where you get the problem there? It's a definitional, categorical problem. Thank you, Aristotle, right? But when we get to the concept of that than which nothing greater can be thought, you don't have to conceive of anything in particular, because by definition, God has to be the greatest thing without actually being a thing. So the way the argument works, and there's lots of folks that play with it even today, using computer code to try to. I guess the most famous version of it is by Gödel. So you can go to Gödel. Where did Gödel give me that? There's the notation if you want to look at it. Therefore, it is not the case that there exists. Oh, wait a minute. That should be, the block should be not the case. That there exists an X that is God. So that must be. I see they've got diamonds. I don't know. But so in any case, Gödel gives us an argument that says basically Anselm is correct here. By definition, ontologically, right? By definition, if you define God as that than which nothing greater can be conceived, and by the way, we can at least conceive of the universe. Universe, right? Over it. That's pretty big. I mean, my Facebook page, I've got an image as my picture that says, this is supposed to be the entire universe. It's just kind of a blur, greenish, whatever. So the universe exists, and if nothing else is larger than the universe, by definition, the universe is God. Which some, like Duns Scotus, who is another medieval scholar, a little later than Aquinas, argues that actually the difference between God or good or being is, there's no difference. In other words, so God is being, all of being would be his definition of God. But so, to say, well, what I mean is I don't imagine a old guy sitting in space where there's no gravity, with somebody on his left hand and maybe somebody on his right hand. No, none of that seems what can't imagine a throne floating out in space. I remember in cars, I was going through the checkout line once, and there was the Enquirer. And they had a picture of the Acropolis made with stars, and the headline said that heaven is discovered with a telescope. They found an Acropolis out through the stars. Almost bought it though. Almost bought it because it was so ridiculous. That would be, but no. Maybe what I would do today is I would have taken a picture of it because it was so ridiculous. But so, by definition, if you say God is that in which nothing greater can be conceived, by that definition, God must exist, because otherwise, well, something else exists that's greater than God, but by definition, God is that than which nothing greater can be thought, so therefore God must be greater than that, or at least that. So this argument demonstrates that God, being that than which nothing greater can be thought, exists. Now, what annoys a lot of people is, number one, they've grown up thinking, well, but you have to believe. It's a faith thing. Either you believe God exists or you don't. And so that kind of takes away that whole requirement for you to have faith in order for God to exist. Well, okay, so that's gone. But that's all right, because they still get upset over other things, like, well, but God doesn't look like Jesus. God doesn't look like Muhammad. Well, actually, Muhammad, sorry, mistake. Allah, not Muhammad, right? You know, because Muhammad was a prophet, not Allah. So, I mean, there's lots of individual religions' conceptions of what God might be. And absolutely, this doesn't cover any of those things. In fact, the minute you add something like male or female, well, that's ridiculous, right? You imagine that than which nothing greater can be thought, obviously would be female, right? And when God made man, she was just joking, right? You know, you've heard those, right? So it's annoying, because the theological definition of God that Anselm gives us, which, I mean, you read contemporary theologians, and that definition has held since then, because you can't get better than that. that's the best. And what do you mean by God? Not some guy with a spear, you know, God of the seas or whatever. You know, those are obviously inferior. But is it helpful? Is it helpful at all? Probably not. Probably not. So truly, therefore, do you exist, O Lord my God, that you cannot be conceived not to exist. For if a mind could conceive of a being better than you, the creature would rise above the Creator. And this is most absurd. I mean, if we think of the Big Bang idea, was there something that caused the Big Bang? Well, the way we think, it would have to be causal connection. There has to be a first cause. Well, wait a minute. What caused the first cause? That's next class. We'll get into that. Right? So there you have it. Anselm. Now, Anselm is not, of course, the only one, even though he's quite interesting. We also have other folks. Did I already play you Stealing Heaven? The video Stealing Heaven? So this is just the...
A distant past, a holy place, a time when a child of the country and a scholar of the cloth would light a fire to all that was forbidden.
If I were to take a woman, I would be spitting in the face of God. You're a man like other men.
You find it difficult to repent of this sin?
Yes,
Why?
I love you, Father. You'll destroy each other, you know that, won't you?
What the devoted worshipped, they defied.
It challenges established knowledge.
What the laws denied, they took.
Religion destroyed me.
What heaven promised, they stole.
It is the time of judgment.
This isn't the only blood that will flow.
Whoops. Sorry about that.
Stealing heaven. Forgive them, Father. They have loved. Stealing heaven.
But that's Abelard. But Peter Abelard was a logician and taught at the University of Paris. Yes, he ended up falling in love with Heloise, and it was hell to pay as a result. well, that's just fascinating story. By the way, their letters are in the library, translated as well, and so you can read them, and it really gives you a very interesting picture of what life was like for some people in the Middle Ages. Wasn't really that bad. It was, well, yeah, it was bad in a lot of ways that we know of today, but not, for them. You didn't live as long, et cetera. But still,